Hi everyone, this is Joanne Fink for Sakura, and today I want to teach you a little bit about italic calligraphy. Calligraphy is the art of beautiful writing, and italic is my favorite hand to do, and the Pigma Calligrapher is my favorite tool to do it with. So what I'd like you to do, if you haven't had a chance to visit Sakura's website and download the lining guide, I've made lining guides in 3 different sizes for the 1mm, the 2mm, and the 3mm. And I'd like you to get the 3mm, and I hope that you also have a 3mm Pigma Calligrapher, because that's what we're going to be working with. Before working, you might want to check out the first video in this series, 7 Tips for Calligraphy Success. There's a lot of great information in there. One of the things we covered that I will just briefly cover here is that for the italic alphabet, the base letter in your lowercase is 5 nib widths. And what I've done in order to help you jump in easily, I've organized the letters into different groups. These are your straight letters. I've got 2 different kinds of branching letters, elliptical letters, and diagonal letters. So let me show you how to make each group. To do the I, we're holding our pen at a 35-degree angle, and you put your pen about 1 nib width from the top. You go up to the top, make a little curve, come straight down at a slant, little curve, and end on a thin. Now I have exaggerated the thin lines here so you can see them. It would really be a much tinier little curve. The L, being an ascending letter, is the same thing, but it's longer. And it's nice if you can practice several of these letters in succession. The T starts about 6 nib widths, and it's got a much rounder bottom than the L, and then I flatten my angle just a little bit before doing the crossbar. I do the same thing with the F. The F has an ending just like the L and the I, and you come back in and branch over and then flatten your angle a little bit for the crossbar. And the last letter in this first group is the J, straight down at a slant, end on a thin line, moving towards the left, and then go back underneath and come up. Now the dot on the J and the I is part of that vertical stroke. So you don't want to be doing raindrops or anything. You really want it to be the same thickness as the rest of the letter. So now let's take a look at the branching letters. We're going to start with N. And to do an N, start on a thin, up to the top, little curve, straight down at a slant. And I want you to see how my line has broken through the baseline, just a little bit. I then would come back and branch over. The trick to doing a nice N is not to do this, but to really give yourself the gracefulness that comes from that curve. Little thin, straight down at a slant, break the line, go back up, branch over, down, little curve, and end on a thin. The M is 2 ends basically put together. Little thin, straight down at a slant, break the line, back up, branch out, break the line, come back, branch out, straight down at a slant, little curve, and end on a thin. If you've done it right, the distance between the downstrokes of your M will be the same. That's how you can tell. The H starts like an L, start on a thin, up to the line, little curve, straight down at a slant, break the line, go back up, branch out, over, straight down at a slant, little curve, and end on a thin. It's a very rhythmic alphabet. The B starts out just like the H. You branch out, and then to here, if I cover that up, you can't tell whether that's a B or an H. But I end it the way I ended the J, flicking a little bit to the left. And then I come back here and I make the same kind of bottom, and I'm sort of overlapping that stroke. The P, and I think I will put the P right next to the B so you can see that the branch here is exactly the same. This piece right here is formed in the same way, and it's just a reposition of where you have the long stroke. Another letter that branches very similarly is the K. Come up to here, and now bring it in, bring it out, and down like that. The last letter in this first group of branching is the R. I usually end my R with a little tick, go back up, and the R is branched higher than the N. What I mean by that is when I'm branching the N, I'm down there, and when I'm branching the R, I do it up higher so that whatever the next letter is, I can maintain a rhythmic distance between the poles of my letter. The next letter in the next group of branches is the U, which is an upside down N, and the Y, which is a combination of the U and the J. And now comes the ADGQ group. And this can be a little bit tricky. To make this first stroke, you have to push to the left. Then there's this nice bowl. To do the D, you're just putting the L shape right on top of that bowl. To do the G, we are coming down and overlapping the stroke. To do the Q, it's just like the A, straight down at a slant, little curve, and end on a thin, just the way you would do for the L. Now let's look at our elliptical letters, O, C, and E. The trick to doing these effectively is to start further below the line than you think you need to, so that you have room to come back in, over, and connect. If you take your hands and try and touch your fingers together, it's really hard. But if you take them and just try and touch your palms, it's easy and it makes a stronger join. And that's what we're looking to do with these letters. You want to overlap to create a stronger join. The C starts like the O and ends just like the top of the J, just like the top of the F. Then the last letter in this group is the E, which also starts like the O and C, comes back towards the left, and then to give it that little branched thickness, I come up to the right. Now let's take a look at the diagonal letters. These are all letters that have some kind of diagonal. The S that we used for pen patterns earlier, just like the O and the C, the trick is to make sure that you're doing it small. That way you have room to come back and add your strokes top and bottom and still have it looking good. For the V, what we're going to do to make sure that the weight of our diagonal letters is reasonably the same, we're going to steepen the angle for the downstrokes on the left. So this gets a little bit steeper and that gets a little bit flatter, and that's what the letter should look like. There's the V. Here's the W. That stroke was a little bit thin. The X, again, you might want to flatten this angle a little bit to give that stroke some added weight. Come across. Here's the Z, and that's the whole lowercase italic alphabet. So, happy lettering, and stay tuned for the next episode in the multi-part series on italic calligraphy.